Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. Hopefully everyone had a nice Labor Day weekend and is excited about where we are. We're coming in for a landing, and it looks like we're coming in for a landing. Our numbers are dropping. So I don't like the sounds of that, but here we are. To those of you that have been riding with us for the duration, thank you. Congratulations. Really excited about today's presentation. Having Garry today, and next week we have Jeff Rubin from your CFO, which is going to be exciting. And then it's pitch time. So we are coming to the end, and I'm really excited. So thank you all. And I'm going to turn it on over to Mr. Johnson.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Angela. Hello, everybody. It is good to see all of you, or most of you. I appreciate you tuning into this session. Let me know, thumbs up. Can you hear me okay? Awesome, great. All right, so I'm Garry. I am an entrepreneur, investor, professor. I teach entrepreneurship at University of Delaware. I'm also currently an MBA candidate at Howard University. But I'm someone who's incredibly passionate about supporting other entrepreneurs and building a more equitable and inclusive ecosystem. So quick background, I'm also the founder and executive director of an organization called First Founders, Inc., where we support a global community of entrepreneurs and innovators, all at the earliest stages of building incredible products, services, businesses that are building a better world. We do that through pitch competitions to provide non-dilutive funding. We organize accelerator programs, and we also just have a really robust virtual community and some pretty cool ways to amplify the work that founders are doing through social media, our newsletter, and our podcast. So today I wanted to share an overview of the various fundraising options that are available to you all as entrepreneurs. And before I get into that, I would love to just go around sort of the Zoom room to hear who all's here. You know, quick pitch, one sentence pitch about what your business is, your company or your project. And that will help me as I go through the presentation to understand sort of which areas to focus on. And if, towards the end of it, after I get through all the slides, we'll just have a discussion and we can dive deeper into any particular area if you want to learn more about that funding opportunity. All right, so if we could start with, I'm going to call out Bruce. I think Bruce is ready. Can you start the intros, please?
Hi, so I'm Bruce Wilner. I am developing, so the company I've at least tentatively named Daylight Instruments, and that's as of like last week. So finally picked a name. And I'm developing affordable tools for amateur scientists. So physical products that will be sold.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, Bruce. Let's go to Samantha next.
Sure. So my name's Samantha Carlin, and I have a weight loss app, a weight loss competition app called Fit for Friends. So I launched it last September. Still kind of working on it, ramping it up, but it's out in the App Store, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha. Michael.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael Stauffer. I'm a company called BizMove, and I'm building a set of movement therapy tools, mostly movement therapy, creative arts therapy tools, using virtual reality with a lot of music and dance that are targeting at this point for people with neurodiverse challenges.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right. Anyone who is currently without their camera on, if you're comfortable introducing yourself, feel free to come off mute.
Okay. I don't know, you know my spiel, but I'm Monique. I am the founder of Impact, and we are a platform that leverages organizational data and community needs to allow for stakeholders to effectively align priorities and allocate resources.
I see we have Nefertari.
You have Nefertari. Give me a second. I was incognito today. Give me a second. Okay, almost there. Okay, hold. All right, we're gonna come off. We're gonna do the camera thing. Come off the camera. Can you see me?
Yes.
Hey, how are you?
I'm
Okay,
great. How are you?
I'm good in yourself. I'm Nefertari Muhammad, Sisters Original Supreme Pies. So good, you're not going to want to share. We're in the process of launching our products in 12 ShopRites at the moment. And our pies are butternut squash, 24 karat, queen bean, and classic bean. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. I'm getting very hungry. Thinking about these pies. If you got a link, please drop it in the chat.
I shall do that. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. All right, anybody else want to introduce themselves? Welcome, Kate.
Hi everyone. My name is Kenny Ifara. Sorry I can't share right now. I've got a madhouse, so just trying to work and do this. So my product, my company is Pastoria Organics, and we're coming up with a plant-based alt dairy based on a unique ingredient that is from my West African roots, also roots actually. So we are pre-revenue, we're not in market yet. We're still in R&D, just about to come out of R&D, and we're looking for manufacturer, co-packer. So that's where we are.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenny. Kate, would you like to go next?
Oh, are you talking to me, Gary?
Yes.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Srinivasan. This is my first time attending the OnRamp. I just wanted to check it out. I work with Ben Franklin Technology Partners, and I know a few of us know each other. So hello, everyone, and looking forward to seeing what this session is about. Hey, Bruce.
All right. Anyone else speak now? We got William Kirsten as well.
I'd like to go.
Go for it.
Hi, my name is Huan. I'm driving right now. My name is Huan, and I have an app called System Sculptor, which will help entrepreneurs build foundations for their business, meaning business plans, templates, SWOT analysis, those kinds of things. Thanks.
Thank you.
And hello, I'll go before hold our peace. My name is Jonna Shreves Taylor. We have a meeting set up, so nice to see you and meet you. I have a mobile app called ArtRise, and it allows independent artists to sell their own work in various ways to their audience and interact. So that is me.
All right, we're gonna kick it off in just a second. William, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Will. I am a chemical engineer by trade, but I'm working on an app in the ed tech space, specifically for world language teachers that allow them to customize lessons for their students. That's
Sam, welcome. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Oh, hi everyone, I'm Sam. I'm a law student across the street at Drexel, and I'm working on 2 mobile applications, both in the government and financial services industry.
Awesome. All right, cool. We got a great group here. Super excited. We have until 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So would love for this to definitely be a conversation. I have some slides to go through. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you have questions or if you're interested in a specific funding source that you want to dive deeper into, I can definitely come back to those slides. And I think there might be some individuals here in the group that have raised funding through some of these different ways to lend their expertise as well. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. If I could be granted sharing capabilities or as a quick pulse check. Has anyone raised funding for their business already? Michael has a little bit. Want to answer in the chat, that's cool too. If you've never raised funding, no worries. Kenny has. Victoria has.
Oh, you have to go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, do this. Okay. All right. So super excited about this conversation. I give this presentation a lot, and I sort of base it off of a book called Get Back. So highly recommend for all founders, regardless of whatever type of funding you're looking at raising, you check out this book. I consider it like the Bible of both pitch deck design and sort of fundraising strategy. All right, so the book is called Get Back. Even if you don't want to buy the book, just Google it and check out the articles that have been written about it. Go to Google Images and search Get Back book, and you'll see the 10-slide pitch deck sort of outline that you can replicate. That'll definitely get you ready to prepare for raising outside funding. All right, so in the book, they really highlight about 5 different funding sources. I added in an extra one, but all of these sources are the vast majority of where startups are going to get their money from. And when it comes to understanding each one, it's super important to know, the requirements that are needed to raise that funding, what you need to do to prepare to go out and raise that funding, and how far it might be able to get you. So to start out, we're going to start with non-dilutive funding options, which are many of our favorite options out there. So non-dilutive means you don't have to give up equity, ownership, control. This is basically free money for your business, right? If anyone's not a fan of free money, yeah, you're probably in the wrong place. But there are some really great organizations, some really great opportunities for you all to tap into those funding opportunities. One being Black Girl Ventures, which has a Philadelphia chapter. So Black Girl Ventures has or hosts regular pitch competitions. All right, and if you're not familiar with the pitch competition, it's basically where you stand up in front of a group of people and judges who want to hear what your business is all about, and they're going to determine, do you get to walk home with this, big check or not. It's basically like Shark Tank, but you don't have to make a deal. There's a set amount of funds in the pool, and the top 3 winners are probably going to walk home with some free money to grow their business. Another option would be pitch competitions at universities. So if you're a student, I highly recommend you check out what opportunities your university is putting on and hosting. A lot of universities now are investing in student entrepreneurship. So regardless of if you're a business major, finance major, doesn't matter, universities typically have pitch competitions that they host either each semester or annually. For the most part, they might be only available to students at that university, but some larger universities will host competitions that are open to students throughout the country. So Hen Hatch is one at the University of Delaware. I went there for undergrad and grad school, and they have an annual competition where they give away $100,000 in cash prizes in addition to in-kind support. That could be accounting, legal, all that kind of good stuff. Yes, roll hands. We're out here.
Have to represent.
Yes, so Hen Hatch is awesome. Another big pitch competition is Techcrunch's Startup Battlefield. So that's open to startups really around the world. They host them in different countries. But if you are a serious tech startup and you're interested in standing in front of some big name venture capitalists and angel investors and entrepreneurs who have built successful businesses, that is a pretty big stage to get on. So these are just a couple of examples of pitch competitions. In addition to these, there are grants that are available. So your city, your state might have grants to invest in local startups and innovation. In Delaware, we have what's called Newcastle County Innovates, which is the county government initiative to fund startups. The state even has an annual grant cycle where they will provide non-dilutive funding to small businesses and startups that are early on in their journeys.
So Gary, there was a question about, do the universities offer alumni the same opportunity as students?
I'll say it depends. I can speak on University of Delaware. So with Henhatch, there is a student track and there's an alumni track.
Oh, nice.
And actually, when I participated, I formed a team. I was a grad student, but we formed a team with alumni. So we were in the alumni track and we actually won like $20,000 free money. So it is real. Everything I'm talking about here, I've sort of done in one way or another. So feel free to just keep asking the questions, but it definitely depends on how the university structures it. All right, next up, we've got friends and family. This one is a bit controversial, but if you're an entrepreneur, some of the first people that you might go to if you have an idea for a business includes your immediate network, oftentimes your friends, your family. You might say, hey, uncle, I need $25,000 to start up this business. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't ask my uncle for $25,000 because he don't got it. But your family, your friend might. It is a popular way for, a lot of startups, a lot of people with those means to be able to get off the ground with that initial startup capital. But it definitely is risky in the sense that, you're working with, you're taking money from people that you love and people that care about you and people who have a relationship with you that you probably want to protect outside of the business. So one thing that can get pretty tricky is, if you're promising your friends and your family, like, hey, give me $25,000, I'm going to get you a return on your investment in 3 years. That's like 3 times what you put in. They're going to come knocking on the door like, yo, where's my money? And if you don't have it, that's going to be a bad situation. All right, so know that is an option that's available that people use. But again, if your friends, if your family don't have the means to invest in your business, don't worry, because there are other options. But to go into just some of the pros and the cons, like I said, it can be easy to get if you have friends and family that have the means. If these are people who trust you, they can be more patient in expecting a return on their investment, or even if if it's a loan or something like that. Typically, they're not trying to chase you down, keep calling your phone number, all that kind of good stuff. Since they do trust you, they do want you to succeed. Some of the cons, especially, can be that you can't typically raise that much money. Oftentimes, it can be enough to get you off the ground, to get you started, but you're going to need to raise more funding from outside sources that have more capital to be able to invest. So we'll get into that. But definitely one thing to look out for is if you do plan on raising, say, venture capital down the road, you don't want to have what's called a cap table, sort of that list of all your investors. And it says like, your uncle's in there, your aunt's in there, your friend, and all of them are on the cap table with all these different, equity percentages and all that kind of good stuff. You definitely still want to keep it clean, keep it professional, because if you do want to go out and raise more outside funding, you want to prove that you know what you're doing. You don't want to come across like, you just gave out a bunch of equity in the beginning to get up and running, and you only raise a bit of money. That's not going to look good when it comes to talking to angels and venture capitalists, who we will talk about in a second. One way to get around the problem of not having friends and family that are wealthy individuals who can put in a lot of money is to look into what's called crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is a great opportunity because it allows you to raise funding from the crowd, right? Everyday communities of people. When it comes to crowdfunding, there are two main types. The first type being rewards-based, which means when you launch your campaign, you're going to provide some incentives for people to put money in, right? And typically these are people who are really making a donation to your business. But in exchange for the money that they're contributing to your campaign, you're gonna say, I'm gonna send you one of our products, one of our new products for free, just because you contributed to the campaign. Or since you contributed to our campaign and you're helping us reach our goal of raising $100,000 to launch a new product, we are going to invite you to a private, box suite at the Eagles game where you'll get to meet the founders and party and have a good time. That's an incentive. But basically, it's like setting up a GoFundMe. If anybody's heard of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all these are sort of rewards-based platforms that allow you to raise money from everyday people. Typically, these are like small amounts of money, but it can add up to be pretty significant if you raise from lots and lots of people. On the other end of crowdfunding, there's what's called equity-based crowdfunding, which I think is super, super cool because it actually allows those same everyday people, the regular community, to invest in your business. So instead of just asking for donations to your campaign, the same individuals that would be interested in contributing would now potentially own a piece of your company. Why is that cool? It's cool for a couple different reasons. One is that if you have an existing following, an existing customer base, it allows you to now tell your customers like, hey, you are now a part owner in this business, right? So those customers who are part owners are more incentivized to one, buy more products, use your services, and then also be your biggest advocates, your biggest fans. So there are a bunch of different options that you see on this, this little picture here, but the main platforms would include WeFunder, Republic, and Micro Ventures is another one. I wanted to share a couple of examples of successful crowdfunding campaigns. Each of these three are equity crowdfunding campaigns. And I think what's super cool is they're all companies founded by Black women. All right, so when it comes to, like I said, I love equity crowdfunding because it solves one of these problems where, there's a lack of access to capital in our communities. Black women are one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs, but the least likely to receive funding for their startups and small businesses. So what equity crowdfunding now allows for is individuals to galvanize the community to raise enough funds, just like you would if you wanted to raise from wealthy individuals, but now you can raise that same money from everyday people. So these three examples, Arlen Hamilton with Backstage Capital, she raised on the platform I mentioned called Republic. You have the Curl Mix team that raised on WeFunder, and then you have Popcom, which is currently raising on Start Engine. So all of these are different options that you have available to you. They each provide, sort of different benefits, but the biggest benefit being you can go to those same friends and family who. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at the
I'm sorry, Gary.
No, it's okay. Okay, we'll check in on the sound. We'll check in on the sound in a second. But yeah, so equity crowdfunding is one of those ways to get around not having wealthy individuals in your network, and now you can raise, let's say, a minimum of $100 from thousands of people to get you to that point where you're raising whatever you need. One thing that I did want to shamelessly plug is if you are a startup interested in raising via equity crowdfunding, I'm a city partner with WeFunder. So happy to talk to you more about that. But we have a partnership where we are now sort of representing Philadelphia and Delaware. So for all of the small businesses and startups that are out there that want to raise, I will be working with you in launching and closing out a successful campaign. You can raise a minimum of $50,000 and you can raise up to $5 million. All right, so kind of already got through this, but if you are interested in crowdfunding, some of the pros and cons would be if you're looking at rewards-based, you don't have to give up equity in your company, which is a pro. One of the cons of reward-based crowdfunding is that it gets super, super complex and complicated when you start if you start to raise money from a lot of people, then you actually have to manage shipping out all of those products or organizing the events and hosting all these different things for lots and lots of people. And that is like a full-time job in and of itself, which will definitely take you away from business. One of the pros of equity crowdfunding is that you're enabling everyday people to now be owners, the same people in your community who couldn't give you that $10,000 upfront. Now they can invest $100 and they'll tell somebody else to invest $100. And it piles up, as you saw in those examples. These are individuals that have raised upwards of $5 million from everyday people. One of the cons might be, yes, you're giving up equity in your company, but typically it's a very, very small amount, and these individuals do not have voting rights to control anything, any of the decisions you want to make with your business. Next up, we have accelerators. So I've heard some of you may have gone through the Founders to Funders for female startup founders accelerator, but there are lots of options out there as well. So accelerators are basically programs. It's almost like going to business school for your startup, but it's at an accelerated pace. So a lot of these programs will be a 12-week sprint to get you to grow as fast as you can. Locally, we have some really cool ones. We used to have Backstage's Philly Accelerator. We have Philly Startup Leaders. They have some great entry-level programs, such as their, I believe it's called, they have an MVP program, and they have like a next level up after that as well. So that's a great one for people who are not necessarily ready for some of the more like top tier programs like Y Combinator and Techstars, because those are programs that are actually going to take equity in your company, right? They're going to want to invest in you maybe $100,000, $150,000, and expect to take 7% of your company as the fee for giving you all the resources, setting you up, putting you in front of investors to make sure that you grow very quickly and scale to the point where you can be a successful high growth company. All accelerators are not created equal. Some of them have certain themes and focus areas. For example, Techstars is a global company with accelerators literally in cities all around the world. And certain programs might be focused on sports tech. Other programs might be focused on ed tech, social justice. They could be focused on food tech, like literally any like industry vertical. Techstars pretty much has an accelerator for that. Y Combinator is more of a general accelerator, but they're like top tier, just like Techstars. These are like top tier programs that are highly selective and accepting companies from all around the world. But having that, for one, having that badge of honor will open a lot of doors. And in addition to that, you should just know you're gonna have to make some trade-offs, which would be giving up equity. Am I still? I'm frozen, I think.
Are you?
Yeah.
Message the folks in the cyber world.
Sorry. Yeah, my laptop says connect. Okay, can you still hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. Okay, as I was saying, so sorry about the slides. They're coming back hopefully soon. I think my internet cut off.
That happened to me earlier with the CIC Wi-Fi.
Gotcha. I'll be back in a second. No problem. But yes, accelerators. There are a lot of them, and not all of them take equity. I have started my own accelerators. I have helped other people start their own accelerators. Tanya can tell you about that too. Some of them are specifically for women entrepreneurs. Some of them are for some of them could be for food truck businesses. So you want to do your research, figure out what program is right for you. All right, let me see if I can bring these slides back.
There we go.
Great.
Awesome.
There we go. Awesome. Awesome. Anyway, here are pros and cons. I will share this link with you all at the end, so you can go through the pros and cons of each one. But accelerators are great. Usually it's a cohort-based model. So you're going through it with another 10 startups and small businesses, and you're in it together. So it's very difficult. It can be a very strenuous process, but you come out on the other end with a big pitch day, a demo day, where you're going to showcase to the community, who you are, what you're building, and why people should invest in you. Typically, the program that you go through is going to structure the demo day so that you're put in front of resource providers, investors, and other people who want to see you succeed. All right. Next up includes angel investors. These are just wealthy or rich people who put their own money, invest their own money into early stage companies. Pretty straightforward. But these are, I don't know why they're called angels, like, they're sent by God. They really aren't. They're just rich.
They're devils. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
All good money, all money's not good money. So yeah, angel investors are given this designation. It's not like, you take any test or anything like that, but you literally have to make a certain amount of money per year to be considered an angel investor. I believe it's like $200,000 a year over the last 2 years as an individual, and you're considered an angel. But yeah, so these are just wealthy people who can put their own money into early stage companies. So if anyone presents themselves as an angel investor, this is someone who is probably going to be writing smaller checks. They could be writing, it could be $1,000, it could be $25,000. But these are oftentimes sort of like the first investors into a startup. So just like I mentioned before, you might have wealthy friends and family. If they're wealthy, they are angel investors. If you do not meet that income threshold in your household, you're considered not to be an accredited investor or not an angel investor. So that's something to keep in mind. And all of these rules are made by the SEC. That's a conversation for another time. But again, a reason why crowdfunding from everyday people sort of gets around that issue. I will take this question. Oh, Michael, is this a question? Michael, I'm just going to read this out loud. Okay, 20 years ago, when Michael first looked into investments for a startup, he was in angel investors were much less professional. Or seen as investing mainly because they really believed in like the idea of the team. So we're much more angels than they are now since they've become much more professional. Just a comment. It's all good. Appreciate the comment. Yes. There are actually like professional groups. There are angel groups. So wealthy people will come together and say, let's all talk about all the startups that are raising money, whether it's in Philly or Delaware or just around the country, doesn't matter. And they will essentially organize themselves. And some of them have, fees to join the group. They'll get together, have drinks, have food, and talk about startups that they want to invest in. So that is one opportunity. I think Science Center has an angel group hosting an event sometime soon, actually. But if you're a startup founder, you're interested in pitching to angels, just Google search angel groups, in your geographical area, and a bunch of stuff will come up. Robin Hood Ventures, aunts and uncles, cool. All right. Oh, and then typically angels will, introduce you to other angels. So I guess wealthy people just have wealthy friends. I guess but if you are, again, if you're interested in tapping into those networks, be sure to, make sure people connect you with other people. All right, and then next up is venture capital. So venture capital firms or VC firms are companies that pool money from foundations, insurance companies, pension funds, and institutional investors, and they invest that money into high-risk ventures for equity. So, VC, right? That is like the main method of funding high-growth startup companies, tech companies for the most part. At the bottom there are several examples of VC firms. Ben Franklin is local to Philly and Pennsylvania. So is Osage. The rest of these here on the list, I'll say I have a personal connection with. So if anyone's interested in pitching to VCs, getting connected with VCs, let me know. But typically how venture capital works is, if you're talking to a VC, oh, are we still good on the screen?
I ain't do nothing. I ain't touching it.
Can you all hear me still?
Can you guys hear?
Yeah, I can hear. Yep.
All right, it's still on. All right, so yes, venture capital. These are typically firms where individuals are basically hired to manage a bunch of money. So a venture capital firm might be managing a fund of $100 million. And these venture capitalists are in charge of picking the startups that this money is going to be invested in. So one thing to keep in mind is that typically venture capital is reserved for high growth companies that can achieve what's called venture scale. So that means that the VCs want to invest in companies that can be worth a lot of times over $1 billion. Why do they want to do that? Because they need a very significant return on their investment. All right, because VCs are managing other people's money. And they are telling these other people, typically wealthy individuals or foundations and whatnot, they're telling these individuals that, hey, we're going to put your money to work and we're going to make some bets that we believe are going to pay off exponentially. So that's why they want to invest in companies that are going to, be acquired for a lot of money or ideally IPO and have some sort of a liquidation event where they're going to return that money to investors at 10x, 10 times what those investors put in. So it's a highly risky way to invest money, but it's one of the biggest ways that wealth is created. It's one of the biggest ways that startups are able to capture market share very quickly. Pretty much all of the tech companies you can think of, all the big social media platforms and apps have raised venture capital, and they were able to grow so large because of that investment. And when you raise venture capital, one of the big things to keep in mind is not, all money is not treated the same. Every VC has their own investment thesis. So one big mistake that founders will make early on is they'll say, all right, we're raising money. We need to raise $1 million. So let's go out and pitch VCs. And they'll schedule a bunch of meetings and pitch all the VCs. And they'll keep getting a bunch of rejections and a bunch of no's. And one of the reasons can certainly be the founders are pitching to the wrong VCs. They didn't do their homework before they went into those meetings and didn't understand that, this VC actually doesn't even invest in my stage, my industry, my geography, like any of that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Both you and the VCs should be doing their homework beforehand, but one big mistake definitely on the founder side is entrepreneurs will pitch to the wrong VCs. Another thing with that is VCs will, they invest at different rounds as well. So you might be very early on in your startup's journey, and you might be, raising what's called your pre-seed round, which is, your first round of capital. You're raising, let's say, $500,000. Every VC doesn't invest at the pre-seed level. They may be a seed stage investor. They may be a Series A investor, and it just sort of goes down the alphabet from there. But definitely do your research first. VCs have their own thesis. That's an important lesson. Another big lesson is that VCs typically do invest together. So when you're able to have what's called a lead investor, that lead investor is essentially going to be setting the terms for your raise, but it could be also a really good signal to other investors who value, the opinion and expertise of the VC that's leading your round. So definitely, you want to be strategic with the money that you do accept if you do choose to go down this route. VCs like to see a lot of social proof, just like people doing crowdfunding do. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then, big drawback is definitely you're giving up ownership in your company. But it's up to you to figure out what is a good trade-off for you. If you want to build a high growth company, $1 billion company, you probably are going to need to raise venture capital in some way, but it's not necessary. All right, so those are all the slides I have. Definitely want to open it up now to have a conversation. So let me know if you have any questions about any particular funding option. You can definitely dive deeper.
Thank you.
Or if you just have questions in general about fundraising, let me know.
Hey, Gary?
Yes. Hello, Michael.
What's your thought? Hi. What's your thoughts on submitting a pitch deck to a like a pitch competition? I'm looking at pitch competitions that seem to be the right scale for me. But someone says, oh, we have a little pitch competition here, or there may be a $2,000 prize, or a chance for you to get in front of people and practice, things like that. And then they want you to submit some short essay style questions, and then they want the pitch deck. And some part of me is a little bit hesitant, because some people say that you don't want your pitch deck out all over the place, but I'm not really clear on the balance of the pros and cons of that.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Don't give away any information that you don't want to, is the simple answer. Everybody should have a pitch deck that they can share, that they're comfortable with anybody getting their hands on, right? If you've got any secret info, any proprietary info, IP that you don't want out there, just don't put it in. You can mention that you have that stuff, which is a good signal to judges or investors, but just don't include the secret sauce in the public pitch deck. I would say, keep shooting your shot. Definitely apply to the competitions, put it out there. One thing that I've done as a hack is, if I'm participating in a pitch competition, I want to know who the judges are. And a lot of times those judges are on the event page, or their profiles are sent out email beforehand or anything like that. So do your research on the judges, and as well as do your research on the organization hosting the pitch competition. If the competition has a certain theme, or if the hosting organization has a certain mission, in your messaging, you might want to strategically, tie those things together and make sure they want to pick you and put you up on the stage because they're already invested in, what you're doing in some way or another.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Of course.
So Jonah has a similar question that applied to crowdfunding. How can you share the idea with the public without giving away the concept
Gotta give away the concept.
on crowdfunding is
Yep.
what is?
And yeah, you gotta have a pitch. Even if, you know, if I run into you on the elevator, right? Your elevator pitch, you're gonna tell me what the concept is. The concept is not, you know, the
What
secret
proprietary
formula.
part of it?
Right, right. Don't give away the secret formula of how you make it, but you should definitely be able to articulate what your unique value is, right? Like, how is your solution different? Why is it unique in the market? What traction do you already have to prove that people want this thing? Those are all things that you should be, you know, willing and able to share just at any given moment. Your concept is that, right? Like, you should have a website. People should be able to know what it is that you're working on, what you're building, and why they should be interested in it. And like I said, still, you know, whatever the secret stuff is, you can share that behind closed doors. But you definitely want to create sort of a lot of fear of missing out when it comes to crowdfunding, right? Like, this is something that you definitely want to get in on because everybody else is in. You know, you're going to miss out if you don't invest or contribute to the success of this business.
So can I ask those of you that are part of OnRamp to just in the comments, let me know if you have a pitch deck at all with a yes or no? Do you have a pitch deck? Just want to kind of start getting some ideas of where we are.
This is some no's. I'm gonna pull up the link, but like I mentioned, even if you already have a pitch deck, check out the book, Get Back.
Yeah. I'll put it in my cart.
That is my go-to for sure. I'm gonna pull up a link to share the 10 slides that should typically be covered in one way or another.
Could you not do that?
What? Oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
I'll hold off on that. I'll hold off on it. All right, other questions?
Funding.
I have a question. I know it's different for every founder and every organization, but the type of documentation or the type of right financial professional that you need to tap into to make sure that the mix of the money is a single pane of glass. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. It does make sense. What's the question?
The question is either what type of system or what type of professional should we look for?
Got it. Okay, yes. So an accountant. Definitely just have an accountant in general, I would say. If you're interested in raising an equity crowdfunding round, depending on how much you want to raise, right, you're sort of required to submit different financials. So if you raise less than 107,000, you can do your accounting yourself. If you raise over that, you have to have like your books reviewed, have an audit, all that kind of stuff. So we definitely have to hire an accountant. But I mean, in general, I think everybody should just be using, you know, QuickBooks, whatever it is, to stay on top of things. And then when it comes to raising, if you decide to like raise like venture capital, something like that, you probably want to work with somebody who's familiar with it, just in case you have like specific questions that, you know, somebody who has never done venture capital financing, you know, they might just not know anything about it. If that helps, if it doesn't, let me know. I can keep talking.
No, so I didn't know that, Gary. So if you raise more than 100K, you have to have financial documentation to present. When you're dealing with a VC in particular, or just in general, you're saying?
For equity crowdfunding.
For equity crowdfunding,
specifically equity crowdfunding.
Okay.
If you raise over $107,000, you have to have an official audit.
You have to have an audited financial report.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll share that there are resources to be able to help you with the costs. It can, it could be between $1,000 to $5,000 to do that. But there are certain opportunities where people want to help to make sure that if you can't afford it, you're able to get the support to raise that money.
And so is that for year, annual, 3 years? Like, what are we talking about?
It is annual.
Mm-hmm.
So when you raise, still speaking about equity crowdfunding, when you raise, your raise is essentially good for 12 months.
Okay.
So you can raise as much money in that period as you want, so long as it doesn't exceed 5 million. That's an absolute max you can raise. There are campaigns, I showed a couple of examples actually where they raised over 5 million. But legally, the SEC has said, look, you can raise up to 5 million. Anything after that, essentially, you're returning that money to investors. You're not allowed to take it.
Mm.
So yeah, when you do your audits, your reviews, all that kind of stuff, it's good for.
And so, who are these organizations that would help with audited financial reports?
I can share more. So I'll say I had a meeting with the National League of Cities.
No doubt.
So yep, they have like partnerships with like Kaufman Foundation. So there are some initiatives where in various cities, nonprofits are providing grants to support local innovators who want to raise money, who can't afford the cost of doing those audits and whatnot. Other questions? Keep them coming.
These different, I guess, like angel investors, venture capital, probably more specifically accelerators and angel investors, how do you go about getting connected and getting your idea out there and trying to communicate with these people?
Another great question. Thank you, Will. Yes, Will, thank you. Okay, so the question is how you connect with investors. One, it's about having a strong personal network, for sure. There are very creative ways you can use to connect with investors as well. So if you want to connect with, let's say, angel investors, there are platforms like AngelList. AngelList.com is like a big, essentially social media platform for investors, and Angel.co, my bad. Eamon coming in clutch.
As always.
Yeah, so you can go, AngelList has a big community of angel investors, as well as startups that are hiring. So if you're looking for a job, or if you're a startup that wants to, recruit talent, that kind of good stuff is posted there. There are angel groups that I mentioned as well. So if you want to do a Google search to see what angel groups exist in your community, that's possible. Twitter is my favorite place by far.
Yep.
Big on Twitter. There are a lot of investors on Twitter. There's a big startup community on there. You could literally go on there and tweet like, hey, Twitter, who knows an angel investor interested in investing in food tech that I can talk to? And people will respond and tag investors, and the investor will be like, DMs are open, hit me up, here's my email. It works. Do it every day. Amy will tell you. I'm sure Tommy's done it too. Other places include, let's see, what are we talking? VCs, you said as well? Yeah. VCs are big on Twitter also. I would say go to the websites of the firms that you want to contact. They should have a contact page or some kind of contact email. Send them a note, right? Give them a quick, brief overview of what you're building. Don't overwhelm them. Don't overload them with a bunch of information. Wow, look at that.
Well, you know who that is. That's Eamon. You already know. Yeah, you know who it is. It's nobody else.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you as always. Eamon,
my go-to guy.
All of the links.
All the links for you.
Stuff.
There you
all
go.
Of the angel groups, all of the VC stuff. Yes, and Kate here is from Ben Franklin. So if you want to get connected with Ben Franklin, you should definitely talk to Kate. All right, other ways. Yeah, oh, sorry. So yeah, do your research first before you just, send a VC your pitch deck or, just cold email them. Do your research to make sure that their thesis, right, the stage that they invest in, the industries that they invest in, aligns with where you're currently at and what you're building. Sometimes it can be hard to get to certain VCs. Some VCs still have a policy where they don't accept cold emails, which means that if someone didn't refer you to them, they won't take the meeting, they won't respond to your email. I think that that's garbage, but it's definitely a practice that a lot of people abide by. On the other hand, though, there are awesome firms out there that prefer cold emails, and they look forward to hearing from people who are not connected, because that's a part of their thesis. They want to invest in people who are overlooked in many regards, and that's honestly one of their greatest opportunities and strengths. So yes. Those are a couple different ways. So yeah, of course. Events too, go to events. Go to demo days, in your community. There might be, if there's a Techstars in your city, or even, Techstars does a lot of their stuff online now too. If they're hosting a demo day, you might be able to just attend. Techstars is doing a lot of their demo days on YouTube. So I sat in on one demo day earlier this week. And you get to see all the startups that are raising money. You get to see and hear from different investors, and panel discussions. Go to those. Those are cool because you get to hear why these investors do what they do, what they're interested in investing in the year ahead. And it's a cool way to have those touch points in person or through virtual panels or whatever to build some relationships. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about: building relationships with people.
So make sure you all attend the OnRamp demo day on September the 30th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there money involved?
There is money involved.
Oh.
I'm attending the demo day.
I'll be there.
Yes, sir. Yes, you will.
Yeah.
So Gary, someone's asking is the list VCs and angels, but I think I'm not understanding the question, Amy, if you could. Well, Kate answered the question for you.
Thank you, Kate.
I put Social Venture Circle in the chat a little earlier. They are a combination of actually investors and angels that offers pitch opportunities as well. One of their members will probably be a judge for our OnRamp presentation. So for our demo day. And so they are a national organization. I was talking to someone earlier today, actually, they got picked from Social Venture Circle. So
Chrissy has a question. If you have a service-based business hosting in-person and virtual events, could you use Kickstarter to offer tickets to one future or multiple future events? If so, is there a way to cap the amount of tickets offered? I'm going to say yes to both questions. I will say when it comes to, actually, Chrissy, could you tell us more about your business?
Yes, hello everyone. I founded a community engagement brand that intentionally bridges the gap between locals, visitors, and local businesses, primarily those that are in the hood, in the underserved areas of the city. So I started in 2018 with a bar crawl. I also host game night. I also host, what don't I host? I tried a food crawl, I've done a party bus. I do a lot of stuff because I want to bring the community together. And so if I go to Kickstarter, I just always heard of Kickstarter as something that you use where you give people t-shirts and you get money. But I've never heard of it being used for a service-based business. So I'm wondering if I could offer like something unique, like a 6-month pass to any experience, as long as they're like over the age of 21. or a yearly pass? Like, can I set something up now for 2022?
You can definitely set up those different types of perks. One of the firms, I invested in a company, and one of their perks was actually an in-person like retreat. And I think you had to invest like $10,000 to be invited, but it's definitely something that's valuable to people, especially with, if you make it an experience, something that people really, really want to be a part of. I think you can, to answer your second question about sort of capping the amount of tickets offered, sort of make it worth your while, right? So you might say you have to contribute $250 to get a ticket. And then, you could also say, and this is limited to a certain amount.
Yeah, I think for Christy, what she would, if she was to do something like that, I think the benefit would be to do packages, right? Because she has the game night packages, she has party buses. Like her goal is really to be a Black-owned Airbnb. That's really the trajectory that she's on. And so to do that, I think packages of experiences on, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be Kickstarter, but packages of experiences, and then she can just cap the number, whatever she wants to get, what she wants it to be, that makes financial sense, that generates revenue, but she doesn't lose, that covers the cost of those experiences, basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's it. Listen to Tanya. That's a
Right,
big,
thank you, both of you.
Yeah, that's a lot of founders don't calculate, for one, the amount of time that's going to go in to putting those packages together.
Right, exactly. The customer acquisition cost is the biggest expense that she's looking at. Well, it's a part of it. It's not the biggest, but it's one of them. And she's been able to keep her customer acquisition costs pretty low. So I think that if she does packages, that would be the best way to go and she could do something like that through the crowd. I think because it's a community-based experience, I think that would be very effective for her. So we'll talk about that later.
There it is. Questions? Also, there's no like set blueprint on how to go about fundraising. There are founders that will start with pitch competitions, and they'll just crush it with pitch competitions and raise as much money as they can. One of the downsides, of course, is it's a competition. So there's no guarantee that you'll even make it to the big stage to present and compete for funding. And then when you're on the big stage, you still have to be one of the winners. So you have to make sure your pitch is refined and all that kind of good stuff. But there are definitely founders who rely on that. I was one of those founders early on. That can be one way to get around, raising diluted funding or venture capital or raising from angels. You can also, be doing pitch competitions while you're raising venture capital. You could be in an accelerator and do pitch competitions. You could never raise any non-dilutive funding if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. But and then just, I guess biggest lesson is all of these things can be essentially mixed together. You can raise an equity crowdfunding round from people who are both accredited and non-accredited individuals, as well as raising from angel investors and venture capitalists.
Yeah, that's the beauty of crowdfunding.
Yep. Any final questions?
I have one question. I don't know. Can you speak of, say, the difference between going towards the fundraising, equity fundraising path versus bootstrapping?
Yeah. So bootstrapping really means you're not taking outside capital, right? So if you're bootstrapping, it typically means you're putting in your own money into, growing, sustaining the business. It's one of the smartest things you can do because if you're able to make revenue, which your business hopefully does, you're able to just reinvest that money right back in your business, right? And if you want to own 100% of your business, that's certainly a way to do it and keep that ownership. I'd say if you do decide to do equity crowdfunding, I wouldn't qualify that as bootstrapping. I would say you're officially raising outside funding because you are, if it's equity crowdfunding, you're giving up a percentage of your company.
But reward crowdfunding would still be bootstrapping compatible, I guess I'd call it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, for sure. If you never want to talk to a venture capitalist and you just raise from everyday people, you can do that. I would say, every business is not made for venture capital. Venture capital is made for every business. There's a small subset of companies that will ever raise venture capital, and then the vast majority of companies that do raise venture capital are actually not successful. It's a very risky game. It's, big money, making big bets, and, a lot of, basically, how venture capital works is a firm is going to diversify their investments with the expectation that a smaller subset of their investments will create outsized returns that make up for any lost investments from companies that might fail.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions? A lesson for sure is that regardless of what type of funding you want to raise, you should always be building up your network. Your network could include just your customers, your friends and your family. So that, for one, you're keeping people updated on what you're building, how you're growing, because if you are showing people the journey and giving them that sort of like inside look into how you're growing, how you're making progress over time, when it comes time for you to launch your campaign and your raise, people are going to want to get behind that because they've seen that you are dedicated to growing this company, right? This isn't you just coming to them for the first time and saying, hey, I've got an idea, here it is, can you give me money? It's no, like, hey, you've seen me building this thing for the past 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, whatever it is. Look at how far we've gotten it to date. And this is how far I believe we can take it with your help. So, build up your email list, your contact list, regardless of what type of funding you want to raise. If you do want to raise from angel investors, venture capitalists, go out and network. Even if you're told no now, it doesn't necessarily mean no forever. So you can come back, and if you can come back and prove that, hey, last time we spoke, I wasn't ready, I didn't have enough traction. Well, now I do, and now I would like to, talk to you more about our company. So there are definitely times where founders are rejected by VCs, and then they come back with more traction, and they're able to raise funding. And there are plenty of people who have applied to lots and lots of different accelerators and been rejected time and time again, but they never give up, and they come back and they're eventually accepted. So don't give up. I feel like that's just what entrepreneurs do. We just keep going, we find a way, we figure it out. But make sure you're not necessarily burning those bridges, because you might want to come back to certain funding pools that could open up later down the road. Eamon just shared a link to the downside of VC. Appreciate it, Amy. Yes, and then just a couple other things. So funding aside, community is super important. So I recommend everybody, build up your own little group of founders. I think diverse groups of people are the best. Even if you're not working on the same type of startup or idea, you can learn from one another and apply different ideas to what you're doing. And I think that's where innovation comes from. But check out different spaces. There's the Drop-In Lounge here at 36 and Market, free co-working space to any startup founder, small business owner that wants to come through University City. You've got IC at 3401 if you're interested in co-working, join a co-working community with, I think, the largest community of venture-backed founders in Philadelphia. Is that true? Amen. I think it's true. I think it's true. Amy will tell me it's not true. But I think
Amy will let us know.
Yeah, Philly Startup Leaders is a great organization in Philly as well. Huge community, huge Slack community. Slack is like a big group chat. If you go to phillystartupleaders.org, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that is where you can go to see, that's where you can go to join a virtual community of a bunch of founders doing incredible things throughout greater Philadelphia. Philly Startup Leaders host events. There's a bunch of programs and all that good stuff. What else do we have? Oh, CIC. CIC is where we are right now. CIC is super cool because they have co-working space. If you want to have like a place to work, if you need conference rooms, if you would like to rent an office, CIC has that kind of stuff. CIC also has a program called their Social Impact Cohort, which I'm actually a part of. First Founders is a part of that cohort. So we have an office here in CIC. It's an awesome community. CIC has their 36 for 75 program, which is where I started. And that's where they select 36 local startups to get 75 days worth of free co-working space. Yeah, membership. So you can do that, tap into that. Information is at the link there. And then, there's just a bunch of this stuff. There's just stuff out in the ecosystem. If you want it, it is there. Go find it. I think everybody here on this call is a willing contributor to your success in this ecosystem. So feel free to contact me. For me, best place is Twitter at Garry Johnson III. Let's connect there. We, as First Founders, host Twitter demo days. So, strategically trying to put founders in front of the VC community that's already on Twitter. We do creative things like that. We've got a really cool podcast. We've done a pitch competition there, give away non-dilutive funding. We've given away over 300,000 in non-dilutive funding to date. And I would say we're just getting started. So firstfounders.org if you want to join in on the revolution.